What's going on, y'all? I'm your host, Paco Elijah, and you're tuning in to Occupy the Media. This is the first episode of Liberty Watch. It seems like the page is growing. We're starting to get more of an audience, and every day it's just getting out there. And I appreciate everyone that's liking the page. If you haven't already, head over to Facebook, Occupy the Media, and like it. We keep you up to date with current events, current news, breaking news. Um, Also on the YouTube, I'll drop the link for you if you could subscribe and share the videos and the episodes. Paco757 is the YouTube page that I'm using now, and we'll be growing the Occupy the Media YouTube page real soon as well. So you can go ahead and subscribe to both. But basically, I just wanted to take maybe about 5 to 15 minutes out every day to try to catch people up on some liberty news. People that I think are really important in the liberty movement, the most important people in politics. And you might already know, judging off the post that I put on my page. But for me, the most important people right now spreading the liberty message and in politics is Ron Paul, his son Rand, Judge Napolitano, Peter Schiff, Snowden, and any type of any liberty candidates that we have, like Thomas Massey and Justin Amash, any liberty candidates in the Republican Party that already got their foot in the door, and they just really need our help and our backing. So I kind of wanted to just take this little time to maybe catch up on news relating to them, and maybe keep you posted with what's going on with them and other liberty candidates, so we can donate and know who to vote for if it happens to be in your local area. So I'll definitely be working on keeping us updated on that. Also, with this podcast, I wanted to kind of give us some good news. We always talking about everything that's bad, Big Brother being spied on, all these wars, Federal Reserve printing all this money, inflation, no jobs. I mean, everything is always bad. But sometimes I think we lose motivation, and sometimes we sometimes wonder how we're going to keep on going or keep on fighting. It almost seems not even worth it when you think of all the laws they're passing, and you think about how much corruption they're getting away with. So sometimes we need that good news to keep us motivated and keep us going. And hopefully this show here can do that for you, and we'll grow into something bigger. Later on, I plan to have video, have more content, hopefully interviews in the studio and everything. So we definitely have more to come. But basically, the first story I want to touch on right now was with Senator Rand Paul and his waste report. If you haven't been keeping up with it, it's great. I think it's one of the most important things that a senator could do, or any government politician can do, is to keep us informed about what they're spending our money on. So it says here, Senator Paul uncovers the National Science Foundation spending $375,000 on a 2-year study to determine what effects the availability of federal funding for research has on scientists' career choices and scientific outcomes. And he goes on to say, it seems kind of circular getting federal research funding to study the importance of federal research funding. Well, that is exactly what the National Science Foundation is doing, spending $375,000 on a 2-year study to determine what effects the availability of federal funding for research has on scientists' career choices and scientific outcomes. Only one can imagine what the findings will be. So I'll definitely post up the link there so you guys can check that out. He also notes here that I think is important, is that the waste report has also reported on other shenanigans as far as federal research, like the perfect first date and the gambling habits of Ugandans. Why are we spending money on this? Why are we spending $375,000 on this? It doesn't deserve to have any money. This is why we need to cut spending. So the politicians out there that are really care for you, they should be informing you about where we should cut. That's what it is. Everybody's talking about let's raise taxes. No, we need to cut. And it's things like this that Rand Paul is pointing out that we can cut. He's saying, hey, look, I'm showing you right now. Why don't we cut this? It's amazing. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't know about a lot of these spending bills that are going through. So it kind of leads into my next thing I wanted to talk about. Was Rand Paul dropped a video, and really, he sounds a little worried on it, about his Senate seat and him running against Jim Gray, and Jim Gray getting a lot of funding and a lot of backing from the establishment, and Rand obviously isn't. So he needs our help. He needs our money. If you can donate, Rand Paul says money talks, and that's for sure. It does. If we're going to keep these liberty candidates in there, and we're going to have someone fighting for the liberty message and try and grow it and hopefully get more senators, more congressmen. Well, we need the few that we have now, we need them in there. So we got to put our money where our mouth is. So I know I'll be donating soon, and I hope you will too. Anything you have, 5, $10, whatever it is, it'll help Rand out because the establishment definitely wants to get him out of that seat and shut him up after all the shenanigans they did with him on in regards to his presidential run. So also another thing I want to touch on is Stansberry Research. Subscribe to them on YouTube if you haven't already. They're always keeping us informed with Ron Paul videos, Ron Paul warning. If you go to ronpaulmessage.com, you can check it out there. But basically, they dropped a new video where Ron Paul talks about the government will raid Americans. So, quote, the government is broke and realizes that there's a limit on printing money. They'll do whatever they can to shrink those accounts. So he's trying to get us prepared, trying to inform us on what we can do to protect ourselves, or the best that we can anyways. And I think it's important that we spread that message and we inform everyone about the dollar, the crashing dollar, the Federal Reserve, the hidden tax we call it, inflation tax. It's important that these people, the average person, the average Joe, comes across this information. So family members, friends, I definitely, your parents, I probably need to show it to mine as well. We let them hear Ron Paul talk about economics and finances because after all, who's been more right than Ron Paul? He's been right on countless things. What, the housing bubble, the Iraq War, 9/11, so many things that Ron Paul has pretty much, predicted due to our foreign policy and our economic policy, monetary policy. Now, I didn't get a chance to check out the Ron Paul Liberty Report, but his last one here, the war on wage earners, quote, why, since the early 1970s, have wage earners' income become so stagnant? Is it that labor is less valued in society? Some sinister plot? Or is it something else? Something so obvious? So definitely check that out. I think of Ron Paul Liberty Report like going to class, like you're going to school. Like I encourage everyone to make sure you're checking out Ron Paul Liberty Report every day. And if you can't check it out every day, try to catch up on the weekends if you can. He gives us so many tools, so much information and talking points. And, it's important that we tuck that in, that we take that from them. These people that are spreading the liberty message very well, we need to kind of piggyback off of them, not only support them, but kind of take some of their talking points and try to wake some more people up when you're debating out there. Ron Paul is, I really can't think of anyone that'd be able to debate him on the issues, even at the age that he's at. Now, so I wanted to jump into some good news because I want to inform everyone of good news as much as I can. We got to stay motivated. We got to have the courage and the guts and the want to go out there and protest and speak out and get involved in local politics, whatever it is, whatever you can do. We gotta have that motivation, otherwise it just ain't gonna happen. So I found two stories here that I think are pretty good. In Bates County, Missouri, the sheriff waives all conceal and carry permit fees and training class fees after the Orlando shooting. So I guess this is some good news. I mean, it's sad that it had to happen this way, where there's a mass shooting. What if it was in Missouri? I think this proves the point that gun control don't work. When people really get scared and people really think about it, they want to be able to shoot back. They want to be able to defend themselves, and we have that right. We should be able to defend ourselves. So, as far as I'm concerned, these fees should have been waived. They shouldn't be there. We shouldn't need a permit or a license or really any of that. But if we're going in the right direction, then that's a good thing. That's what we need to do. At least we're going in the right direction. So I guess kudos to this sheriff in Bates County, Missouri. I'll post up the link for that story and that video so you guys can check it out. Another story here that I personally really think is some great news. The mayor of Inez, Kentucky, or Inez, not sure if I'm saying it right, cuts the police department in order to save money. So apparently they were down to, I think, one police officer. I'm not sure how long that was. But now they've decided to just shut down the police department. There's no police. I looked up this city or this town. on Wikipedia, and it is a city in the county seat of Martin County, Kentucky. The population was 466 at the 2000 census. So somewhere between 500 people in a town with no police. So somebody's getting a taste of some anarchy. But you know what? Maybe that'll just make people arm themselves and chill out and be cool. How about we just all be cool? So I think this is a great thing. I think that we got to stop depending on government to save us or protect us. We just need our rights and our liberties, our gun rights, our freedoms, our privacy, and just let us be. And our communities, our neighbors, will take care of ourselves. We don't need to be waiting on the police and hoping that they save us, because sometimes it's too late. They can't come and save everybody at a mass shooting or save everyone from that criminal breaking into your home or a rapist or whoever it may be. We have to be able to defend ourselves, and we have to be able to speak out against our government when they try to keep us from defending ourselves. But getting rid of the police department, saving money, cutting spending, I like it. Less government jobs, less tax dollars being used for that. That's what I like. So now, maybe they could save a little money. He can go get another job. Hopefully, a better job. All right. So next thing I want to jump into is Judge Napolitano. He had pretty much a rock star day yesterday. He was all over the place. Lots of interviews. So I keep them up on Occupy the Media page. So make sure you guys again like the page if you haven't already. Judge Napolitano videos are one of my favorite. He is always sound and crisp and knows what he's talking about. I don't know how he's still on Fox News, but we definitely glad to have him up there. Honestly, for me, he's probably the only person I really like on TV. For the most part. Maybe you can name one or two others that's all right, but the judge is really the only one I really like on TV. He defends liberty very well. But the first interview I want to talk about is him. He talking about John Kasich. So John Kasich has approved medical pot in Ohio, and I wanted to pull up some of the laws, but kind of run out of time. Maybe I'll try to get a link up for you guys on some of the new medical marijuana laws. But basically, he did approve it, and the judge responded, and he was on Fox Business, and Cavuto was pushing him a little bit about legalizing drugs. And Judge Napolitano defended that. He defended legalizing drugs, and he said, quote, "There is no federal authority." And I agree. There is no federal authority. Now, a lot of people like to point to states' rights or the 10th Amendment, or say that it should be up to the states about, medical marijuana. But I look at it differently. I see it as the states don't have a right to tell you you can't smoke something, drink something, or put whatever you want in your body. So in my view, it's really a violation of your 4th and your 5th Amendment rights. You can't come into my home because I have drugs or take it from me. You can't take it out of my car or take my money or confiscate me, the 5th Amendment, civil asset forfeiture. You can't take my stuff. You can't take my drugs. You can't take my weapons. So I just see it as the states, the federal government, they have no authority to tell us what we can put in our bodies and what we can't. And I think we do a lot better with our argument when we point to the 4th and the 5th Amendment when it comes to private property rights, and when it comes to right to your life, your liberty, And another thing is, there is no authorization in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights for there to be regulations on drugs. So you can't point to it in the Constitution, and you can't show where you get the authority to regulate that, or to put me in prison or someone in prison because of it. It's not there. You can't do it. It's that simple. So definitely love the fact that Judge Napolitano be standing up to even his peers at Fox News and Fox Business. Now, if you don't know, Frredom Watch is back out. I don't think it's doing whole episodes. I think he's doing little snippets here and there, segments here and there. But his latest one was talking to J Bolton, and this is the ambassador. And he asked him, why don't we declare war on ISIS? Which I think is a good question. I mean, why don't you get Congress involved? Why don't they force a vote? But you see, they don't want to do that. They just want to be able to allow the president to have executive authority, do whatever they want, no accountability, no one gets in trouble, no repercussions. Even though we have all this blowback, it doesn't matter. And I found it interesting to see J Bolton on Frredom Watch because he's a big hawk. Every time I see him on TV, he always just wants more bombs, more intervention, more troops overseas. I mean, it's sickening, really. Now, another question he asked him is, how do we stop lone wolves without violating the Constitution? Well, I think there's an easy answer. Of course, John didn't say it, but why don't you get a warrant? You got to get a warrant to look at these terrorists and to see what they're doing. You have to get a warrant, and you can't go listening to everyone because we would do better finding these lone wolves if we didn't spend all of our time looking at everybody and we just looked at the few that are on the radar. On the radar, okay? Now, matter of fact, they said that Judge Napolitano in another interview yesterday said that his employer, the gunman at the Orlando shooting, his employer is a contractor with the U.S. government and with the CIA. I mean, and he was being investigated by the FBI. I mean, how much more do you need to find out who the bad guys are or the suspicious guys are? And you can't even spot them, so we're supposed to trust you with more authority, more power, less freedoms, less liberties? It makes no sense. It does not. It seems like these terrorist acts just benefit our government because they grow, and it doesn't benefit us because our liberties shrink. And nobody should be for that at all. Now, one other thing I want to jump into is Thomas Massey. If you checked out his Facebook page yesterday, he posted up a nice post, an article from Bloomberg, where it says the Orlando shooter wasn't on U.S. no-fly list despite the FBI probes. Okay, so he wasn't even on the no-fly list. We got kids on the no-fly list, old ladies and stuff on the no-fly list, people getting stopped, but somehow someone getting investigated by the FBI. He's perfectly fine. But he posted some interesting facts here. He said, predictably, Democrats here in the House are calling for more gun control. They want to forbid anyone on the no-fly list from purchasing a firearm. 3 problems with their proposal. This perpetrator wasn't on the no-fly list when he purchased the firearms. The no-fly list isn't accurate, nor is it compiled in a way that would make it constitutional to deprive someone of their basic rights merely because they, or someone who shares their name, appear on the list. And 3, the FBI director has stated that the no-fly list is already consulted as part of the background checks done for gun store purchases. Purchasers are flagged for additional screening if they, or someone who shares their name, appear on the no-fly list. As usual, the gun control being proposed is unconstitutional and would not have prevented the tragedy that the legislators seek to use to motivate its passage. What could have prevented this tragedy? How about eliminating gun-free zones where security is inadequate to protect law-abiding citizens who are otherwise capable, willing, and endowed by their creator with the right to defend themselves? Now, I kind of jacked that up a little bit because I'm running short on time, but he's right. We need to eliminate these gun-free zones. In gun-free zones, that's the hashtag that I use, and I think everybody should be using. They're all happening in gun-free zones. Now, Napolitano pointed out the same thing on Kennedy, Fox Business, I think yesterday or the night before, and he said, quote, backing what Thomas Massey said, quote, the bar was a no-gun zone. Like Aurora, like Columbine, like Newtown, all of these mass killings take place in places where the government has prohibited people from protecting themselves. Killers know it's like shooting fish in a barrel. This is so true. Why are they going to go to places where they know people are armed? They're not. They're going to go where people are sitting ducks and no one can fight back or shoot back or stop them from fulfilling their crazy fantasy or whatever it is they want to do. Now, this gentleman here, it came out yesterday when they were talking to one of the witnesses. She said that he was calling 911. He was telling them that he was doing this because he wants Americans to stop bombing his country. Now, that doesn't give anybody the right to go kill innocent people, but at the same time, we'd be fools and not recognize what our foreign policy is doing over there. And then on top of that, not only do we put ourselves in danger by going overseas and bombing people and killing people, but we get them upset, we get them roused, we create radicals here, and then, knowing that there could be radicals here, we disarm ourselves by creating gun-free zones. It makes no sense. We're making ourselves less safe, more and more every day. And the gun-free zones ain't gonna save us. More troops on the ground over there ain't gonna save us. More no-fly zones, more intervention, more bombs. It's not gonna make us safer. And it might make you feel better, or some people feel better, feel like they're fighting back, they're doing something, but you're not. You're only creating more terrorists. And this is what Ron Paul talks about, blowback. And this is what we need to understand. When we go over there and we kill people, we kill their family members, we create more terrorists, we make it easier for the terrorist organizations to recruit them. And then we make it even worse by walking around disarmed, or at least knowing everybody is disarmed. It might not be that bad if you didn't want to carry a gun or didn't want to have a gun. If we lived in an armed society, you have a lot of your neighbors and a lot of your peers in your city and in your towns and in your communities that would be armed. So if something went down, more than likely there'd be a law-abiding gun owner nearby to save the day, or to at least keep from even more and more people being killed. I don't understand how that doesn't register for some people. But, for some people, maybe they have to be in the middle of a mass shooting for it to register. I don't know. But that pretty much does it for Frredom Watch on the first episode today, you guys. I think I went a little bit over time. I'm trying to keep it within 15 minutes. But again, if you haven't already, like the page, Occupy the Media on Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube page. I'll put the link. I'll also put the link to all of the stories that we talked about on here, so you can go ahead and visit that. And then, keep spreading the liberty message. Peace.